Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks, and this is Weekend Crypto, brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto Network. And in case you don't know, the basic idea is that I cover weekend crypto news slash events that happen between a Friday and a Sunday and pop it out 08 Monday morning, before Stack Rose and before Zay and King hit the live at the 10ish hour. And yeah, that's basically the idea of this whole thing. So let me just say before I do get into this, I do appreciate, like, this is over a year long of trying to run this angle of, yo, no one's talking about the news that really happens on the weekend like that. Um, and so I've been sticking with it, and folks are watching it a little bit more now. Granted, I know I'm on at the earlier part of the morning. If you're on the Cali time, it's a whole, it kind of works better for you. But if you East Coast time, it is what it is, right? But I just want to say thank you to the folks who do tap in, who engage with me in the live chat when I'm actually up at the time, because X amount of times I do not be making it to sleep before midnight trying to put this thing together. I just want to say thank y'all. I appreciate including the scammers, but I appreciate the folks who actually say comments. I appreciate the folks who do the reshares. I appreciate the folks who engage with me. I appreciate the lurkers too. Like, lurkers, y'all count. I see how it looks on the back end with the viewing numbers. So I appreciate all of y'all. Thank y'all. So we're gonna get into some stories. Not gonna lie, there was a number of other things that kind of popped up, and I was just like, I'm I'm trying to like reel myself back in from having these king moments. Um, and so it's like really trying to keep it to the 7 and under story so I can keep it within the 30 and under minutes. But y'all already take it how it is. Like, y'all see how I talk about this stuff. I get my moments like King where like I might go in a little extra on things. But nonetheless, we're gonna jump into these things and you'll see what I'm talking about as far as like, it wasn't necessarily scammer story stuff. One or two things that happened, but how am I saying this? I'm looking to frame things in a more event driven context. And as you know, if you've been watching this for any amount of time, if you see me and interact with me in the Discord stuff, or even see my stuff on Twitter, um, I'm not a price talk person, right? All I know is like stocks go up and down. Same thing as crypto; they go up and down in USD value, but stuff like this, I'm trying to bring it in as far as like, is this an indicator? Is this showing the trend? Is this showing a pattern? Or is it showing something of a future behavior as an indicator or a future situation? And I think I got some things that meet those kind of framings, right? So here's this first one. Twitter founder Jack Dorsey, crypto, Twitter founder Jack Dorsey's crypto firm partners with Paxful Ray Yosef for P2P market venture. And so I'm gonna just go through the highlights. As always, links will be in the description for this. And so that means you can dig down on this if you want to get into it further, because I don't always end up reading the whole article. Sometimes things will be of interest to me when I'm first going through them. And then when I get on the live part of actually recording it, I'm like, that don't even matter anymore. And I already said this other thing. So bear with me. But if you want to double down and like, check what I'm saying, the links are always going to be in the description for this, right? So you can definitely follow through. So getting into these highlights, Jack Dorsey's crypto firm firm to be determined. Huh, okay. I didn't even realize that till just now. Has partnered with Paxful's co-founder Ray Youssef to launch a decentralized peer-to-peer crypto trading platform. The new venture, called Civilian Kit, aka Civ Kit, will be built on Nostra, which that's going to be interesting within itself, as a decentralized network protocol for distributed and free social networking systems, according to the project's white paper released last month. Funny enough, they don't provide a link to the white paper in here, which I thought would have made more sense since you were making that reference. But whatever, crypto news, whatever. The launch of the Civ Kit comes shortly after USS P2P Bitcoin marketplace, Paxful, which is popular in countries like Nigeria and Kenya, shut down amidst regulatory pressures and terminal conflicts, which was stuff going on in the last couple of months, last couple of weeks, right? And so CivKit intends to create a network of decentralized, non-custodial Bitcoin marketplaces, which could reach thousands, Youssef said during a recent episode of The Scoop, a weekly interview podcast by crypto media The Block. So another news platform. He claimed that CivKit would lead to thousands of plug and play P2P markets around the world. Adding that the decentralized identity tech developed by Jack Dorsey's company, TBD. Oh, that's actually the name of the company. Are we saying that's like to be determined? I don't know. I don't know. Sorry, y'all. Would play an important part in the process. I'm not gonna lie. I am actually curious to see how this would work out. They don't actually give any indication in the rest of this article about like, well, where is it going to end up starting as far as like what marketplace is going to get to see it first. They don't give us any of that. They don't even give a timeline. But the point being is that this is Jack coming out in another part of the space and stepping up. And this is also Paxful working its way to, let's say, counter how some of this regulation is going in some of its more important market areas. So the US, African countries in particular. And this is going to be interesting to see how it plays out, especially as we're going into the halvening. Like, this is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Other thing to note is the focus is on Bitcoin. I do wonder if a down the road thing, they will end up changing their position. Just saying, it's a thought. Not changing their position, but more so about expanding in with other crypto. And not just having it be a Bitcoin focus. But that just came out this weekend. It's going to be interesting to see that combination of things. Jumping into this next story. Yo, I want to get close on this before I get into the story. NY is the hometown all day. But the things that I've been seeing come out of New York the last like 9 months, maybe 15 months, it really just has me looking at New York like, yo, what are we doing right now? Like, let me get into the highlights. So what I say after this makes more context and sense, right? New York introduces crypto bill to tighten rules. Attorney General weighs in. So yeah, I'll read it. New York's Attorney General yesterday announced a new bill aiming to bring tighter rules to combat crypto fraud. All right. New York's Attorney General announced a new bill aiming to bring tighter rules to the crypto fraud thing. The Crypto Regulation, Protection, Transparency, and Oversight Act proposes one of the most extensive set of cryptocurrency legislation in the country. Now, if you've been following the Gentleman of Crypto Network for any amount of time, you know King and Zay, and like those of us who've been around for a minute, we always make that joke of like, if they tell you it's one of those like super protecting every child, no one left behind, it's going to be a lot of kids left behind and a lot of kids not protected. The same situation is going to play out in this. And when I read this, the second time when I was actually doing the highlighting on it, it made me think of something. I'm gonna get into this next highlight. On May 5th, so all of this stuff came out last week, right? Granted, they was probably working on it for a couple months at a time, back out on calendar. So on May 5th, New York's general attorney announced tighter steps to combat the fraud and dysfunction that have become trademarks of cryptocurrency, and a move that is likely to increase national attention on the multi-billion-dollar crypto business. That don't even make sense how that's actually said. Um, it should be industry, no? But anywho, I'm gonna jump down to this next part. The crypto bill aimed to bring transparency. So what is it? If the latest bill is passed, cryptocurrency exchanges may be obligated to reimburse victims of fraud. The measures require corporations to provide information in order to promote transparency in the industry. Moreover, exchanges would have to give material information about about issuers to investors including the risk and conflict of interest disclosures, crypto promoters must register and disclose their involvement in any issuer whose crypto assets they promote. Furthermore, crypto markets would be forced to develop and disclose listing guidelines. Here's the thing. Here is the thing. I'm going to get close. If the exchanges would have been transparent from the get-go about their listing guidelines, this wouldn't be a thing, right? So arguably, the centralized exchanges, they screwed the rest of the space globally speaking, because what New York is doing is setting up the playing field for them to start going after other businesses, other crypto influencers, and other types of entities related to this space, not just in New York, not just in the US, but they are expanding globally. This, when I read this, it made me think of the case where they tried to call out the South Korean company, the dude that I think it was in South Korea. You got and I think it was the AG that did that too. Then you got the other situation going on with the Southern District Court out of New York, the Seventh Circuit, or the Seventh or the Fifth Circuit, whatever. The point being is, this legislation is going to work where New York is going to be on some US government federal level. We're going to start throwing our weight around into questionable jurisdiction areas that they would traditionally have no business being in. Here's my issue about this, because some folks will be like, oh, well, we're America. Oh, we could do that. Oh, New York is the best. But here's what the issue is. And I literally had this conversation earlier today with somebody that I know is running a exchange. They're working to do an exchange in New York. And I say, here's what the issue is with that. You got a state that is setting it up that they can go after other entities outside of the US and be like, well, we have authority to do it because arguably you have a US citizen, a New York citizen engaging in your product or utilizing your product in some way, your product or service. That gives us right. That's one of the potential arguments. And I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, I'm not a financial advisor, but I've been in this space long enough and I've seen enough trends, patterns, and indicators, and I'm counting this as a situation. And New York is setting itself up to go after X amount more players on a way broader scope across the board. And the funky part of it is, even if they like don't have a strong case, all they're really going to end up doing is throwing spaghetti at the wall and tying people up in legal litigation, so that either you're going to be proven wrong, or you're going to end up having it that you pay a undisclosed fine amount, or they're going to end up bending you over backwards and like dig in your pockets. That's the three things that I see coming up, and it's going to go outside of the US. I'm seeing an outside of the US move just because of how this article is snippet highlighting the key things. But let me, and when I read this article, when I read this the second time, this one line had got me. The measure requires corporations to provide information in order to promote transparency in the industry. On that line alone, I could be like, yo, you're operating in a way that if you don't have a license with our area, our state, somehow you're not enforcing it to not allow New York citizens. I'm not going to say residents. I'm going to say citizens, because there's a whole thing about being a citizen of a state. That you aren't doing the proper due diligence or the proper protective things to stop New Yorkers from having access to your thing. We need to see, you know, what your whole your compliance setup is like, what your how are you stopping this potential activity from happening? Then there's the other one. Imagine that you're a an influencer, you out in like Accra, Ghana. Here come New York AG telling you, oh, well, you're promoting a token or an exchange or something that's in the States because you got a referral link. Yo, you got to come up off some money, or you got to come to the States to be put in front of a court that has what jurisdiction over you? Listen, I'm gonna stop beating this horse, but I promise you, this is going to come back. I don't know the timeline, but this is going to come back. And when it does, I'm gonna be like, yeah, you remember what I said a couple months ago? You remember what I said a year ago? Here we are. All right. So jumping into this next joint, um, win for crypto as China's Supreme Court approves its use to settle debt. All right. So I'm gonna jump through the highlights and then I'm gonna say some things to put some context into why I did the clickbait title for the thumbnail of this. All right. So, in recent update, the country's Supreme Court released guidelines regarding cryptocurrency related disputes, stating that settling a debt using a small amount of digital assets would be considered legal if both parties agree. Wu Blockchain reported May 7th. So, this, yeah, timeline, you understand what's going on. Jumping into this next one. The top court also clarified that if one party agrees to transfer cryptocurrencies to another, but the receiving party cannot fulfill their end of the deal due to policy restrictions, the court will determine that the compensation based on the actual value of the property accepted by the receiving party at the time of the signing of contract. So basically, hey, we figured out how to deal with, disputes and settlements by saying, did you do what you're supposed to do? Well, no. Well, why couldn't you do it? Oh, because some regulation related to blah, blah, blah. Okay, bet. Here's what the refund is going to be because you didn't do the service. That's it. Here's the thing, putting this in some context. So back in when I was in like 2018, writing for a particular exchange, um, this was there was a case in China where the Supreme Court said it was okay to use blockchain as evidence in an official court case. This is all the way back in 2018. I want to say it was 2018. The point being is that, and I keep saying this just because like I pay enough attention to the legal stuff. Now I'm not saying I'm out here being a lawyer on the international scale or a business lawyer, whatever, or like I'm in courtrooms and no, and I'm not reading down through like 50 pages dossier stuff like that. But I'm paying enough attention to notice that there is activity happening in these other countries and the other jurisdictions in these other governments, and there is a move of where one thing is said publicly, but it's when you start looking at what's going on with the court systems or when you start looking at what's going on with the people on ground. It might be one thing said in public as far as the government is concerned, but then the other question is, what are your people on ground doing? It might be one thing that is said in public, so that it comes off as a good headline, a caption take or whatever. But what is going on in your legal system? Same thing's going on with Russia, where they had what we were reporting over here in the West is like, oh, Russia's not messing with crypto, Russia's not doing blah, blah, blah. And I was reporting for over a year on how Russia's legal system was changing, like in their public, but it was behind the scenes for us over here in the West. Same thing with China. Their legal system has been slowly but surely bringing in certain things related to crypto. And it's like, oh, all right, this is happening. This is working. That whole situation of like, oh, the mining had to stop. We're banning crypto in that regard. That's X amount of a thing. But as far as this whole, well, Chinese people can't get crypto in China, 100% BS. That's why I said it was a lie. So arguably not really a clickbait title. The point being in this is that people can do transactional activity and use crypto to pay for stuff. Now, there might be some little caveats and nuances to like the type of items and stuff like that, as well as like, well, you're not going to pay necessarily for like $1 million condo in like Beijing or something, or you're not going to do something where you're doing a direct transaction with like the government. But if it's a person to business or business to business level kind of thing, and you're following X amount of the accounting rules for them, probably still doable. People to people, person to person is doable. The point being is the ban on crypto in China is not what people think it is. If you're outside of China, it's not what people think it is. That's my point. This is going to come up again. This is why I'm saying to y'all, like, the idea of doing these stories in more of a event driven thing, this is a major event. Now, granted, they do talk about in this article about how there's the other thing of where China did the ban, but they don't actually list and say what the ban is, and they don't actually give the press release that came out of China for it. So again, like, you got to take these articles and kind of like understand how to read between the lines. That's my point. But this is a major thing, okay? At the end of the day, the people on ground were still doing things with crypto, is the point. Jumping into this next joint. I seen this story and I was like, all right, let's see where it goes. Let's see where we go with this. So these five oh man, I'm tongue tied today, boy. I'm getting too excited. These five companies have filed Web3 or NFT patents. Where am I going? I'm jumping down here. So, blockchain and blockchain-based systems are poised to unlock a wide variety of use cases that we probably haven't even thought of yet. Um, Guven told Blockworks, but those use cases need to be structured in a way that incentivizes the individual creator to participate, and these include legal and regulatory systems. Now, this person is okay, I don't even know how to say your man's name. I'm not even going to mess you up like that. I'm just going to say the CEO of Web3 tooling platform Calder. Y'all can Google that if you need to. Again, links for this will be in the description. Here's the point to know, and I'm gonna give you some other companies that they're naming. So it's Haribo, FICO, which is the credit scoring thing, Fujitsu, Japanese company, Fidelity Investment, Formula One. Here's what gets me about this article, right? And if you've been following us for any amount of time, you know that Reggie's one of the people who's also on the network. And I'm saying Reggie Middleton, he was a guy who came up with the Veritasium token and the whole thing of being able to do a transfer of value. As far as he was the first person who ran to the patent office and said, I want to put a patent on this. And so here's what gets me about this space. And I've been to one or two different events over the last couple of months, and in more of the business legal sector side of it. And everyone keeps talking about how they want, clarity and understanding from the SEC. The patent folks are doing what they're doing. The copyright office, I mean, is doing what they're doing about NFTs and trademark stuff like that. Here's what's getting me. Everyone wants to like follow X amount of the traditional rules and policies as they are when it works in their advantage. But this Reggie Middleton situation where he had his patent, he put the patent in 2014, and he has it here in the US and in Japan, but nobody wants to acknowledge that, and how much it connects into the DeFi part of the space, the NFT part of the space, the whole thing going on with exchanges and the exchange of value and all that. This is the shit that I call as the BS that kind of frustrates me about what I see going on in the space. We want to promote it when it's the traditional companies or like big name people, but when it's not in the advantageousness of traditional players or within who's like the cool kid in this crypto space shit, Like, we don't want to hear about trademarks. We don't want to hear about copyright. We don't want to hear about like copyright infringement and blah blah. We don't care about none of that. But now this is where it matters because FICO did something, right? Because Fidelity did something. All right, bet. I I'm keeping track of stories like this because when stuff starts really, and he already threw out a lawsuit to Coinbase. Who is it? It's a couple of the different exchanges. I think like Coinbase, Binance. I think Avalanche is getting one too or something. Is it? He's putting the lawsuits out there for infringement. Sushi Swap, Uniswap, all of them. I got a Sushi Swap story by the way. Anywho, jumping on to this next joint. I just had to throw that out there as noting that there's a pattern of behavior happening in this space where we only want to deal with rules and regulations of like copyright, trademark, and infringement stuff when it works for the flavor of the month or the traditional players coming into the space. That's where my gripe is. All right, on to this next thing right here. Texas latest to mull gold-backed digital currencies. I kind of felt like, you know, let me highlight it first. Texas House of Representatives is considering a bill that will create a gold-backed digital currency. The gold-backed digital currency bill, HB 4903, will be introduced to the House on March 10th, which is this week coming up, by Representative Mark Dorazio. It has already garnered the support of 43 sponsors and was considered in a formal meeting on Tuesday. A public hearing will now take place on Monday. So that's this week. If you're down there in Texas, you know, you might want to tap in. Excuse me. And so the bill will require the state to establish a readily transferable digital currency and would authorize it to contract a private company to do so. Upon establishment to the new digital currency, the state would be required to hold a certain amount of gold. The amount of gold held will be equivalent to that needed to redeem any digital token issued. The bill would authorize the state to use a fee for the issuance. God. The bill would authorize the state to establish a fee for the issuance or redemption of the digital currency at a rate necessary to cover administrative and storage costs. So two things. One, this is what Very did. When Reggie came up with the app and the wallet joint, this is literally what it did. It was backed by gold, and then you could redeem physical gold. There's a patent on this, is my goddamn point. Like, y'all don't understand how frustrated I be when I be seeing certain things where it's just like, oh, this shit is cool now, but it wasn't cool when it worked this. Okay, all right, all right. Here's the other reason why I wasn't really a fan of how they kind of wrote this up in the article, because they make the comparison to Zimbabwe, but here's the thing. Texas has special rules around gold where like you can do your own. There's what is it called? It's called a banking it's something related, a bank gold or gold of bank or something, but like it's a state sanctioned thing where you can actually put your gold into a physical vault place and have a place to go to for your physical gold. So Texas is already positioned in a whole different way compared to any other state in the US when it comes to gold, is my damn point. They don't mention that in this article. And they also try to throw kind of an equivalent of like, well, Zimbabwe is doing this to stabilize the dollar, and you know, gold does this stabilization thing. Yeah, but Zimbabwe is a whole different level. It's a whole goddamn country. Okay. There's a whole different level of how a country has to deal with its national economy versus the state and what it's doing in this manner to deal with its local economy and its citizens. I'm just saying. I know I'm sounding like I'm getting aggy. I'm not trying to get aggy, but I am bringing the point of this story out because it is relevant to Texas already has a position on how it looks to operate with gold. They have a facility that already deals with storage of physical gold for Texas citizens, meaning you are a registered resident of Texas. Okay. Um, y'all can dig in on this. Links for this is going to be in the comment. You agree with me? Comments is open. As I keep saying, as King say, as they say, as the other folks say, we don't delete these comments. We do keep receipts. So just remember that when you start saying some left field shit, like it's gonna be one of those, oh, we're gonna look back and be like, all right, like, why'd you say this? Like you were wrong. If you saying something that I don't know, I appreciate you for educating me. All right. I'm gonna also say that preemptively. Jumping on to this next story, because I know I am running for time. Kazakhstan collected 7 million in crypto mining taxes in 2022. Now, the reason why I thought this story was relevant to cover is because one, I remember there was somebody that I was following on LinkedIn. I can't even remember the dude's name right now, who he was out there early messing around in Kazakhstan, doing like the preemptive legwork to be able to get like mining facilities out there. And this is like, I want to say before 2019. Point being is that the activity out that way in that, let's say, what is that, former satellite regions for Russia, as well as what we're looking at, like the eastern side of Europe. Yeah, I'm not even gonna say that word, but things have been happening over there for a while. Now, I'm gonna jump into these highlights real quick. I'm gonna stay away from the numbers because this isn't a price talk thing. This is an indicator thing, and I'm gonna bring it back to what it means in the States. The government of Kazakhstan received, I'm just give you the dollar equivalent, 7 million in tax payments from crypto mining entities in 2022 following the implementation of an amended law regulating the physical burden of mining cryptocurrencies, according to local reports. That's a hyperlink actually for the word according. You can follow that through. Again, links for this will be in the description. So preliminary data from the government for 2023 shows that mining fees collected by April 27 totaled over $541,000 at the time of writing. The figures are much lower than the 1.1 million in fees paid in the first quarter of 2022. Now, I just read that, so you have something that you can kind of picture in your head about numbers and stuff, right? The rest of what's going on in here isn't relevant. Here is the takeaway on this. Here is the takeaway. And I'm gonna keep saying this because it's relevant in how I cross-reference stuff in my mind. Biden's executive order was the dog whistle to the US side, federal, state, county, city agencies and departments, to try to figure out what is going to be your part of this blockchain crypto industry pie. Hence, you see what Arizona just did with the mining thing, what Arkansas did, what Texas is looking to do with the gold stuff, what the New York AG is doing, what the New York Circuit Court situation is how that's playing out. The federal government's doing their thing for the different departments. The states are doing their thing. The counties is where I'm still waiting to hear some counties start throwing some things out. Meanwhile, while all of that is happening, other countries, other nations and kingdoms and cities and such are finding their way around, well, how do we get our part of this? Case in point here with Kazakhstan, they've been doing this for a minute. Granted, they had to figure out how to get more of the like, well, we know you guys are making money, but you got to pay us because you inside our house renting out our energy. That was just a matter of time for that happening. I'm gonna give you a comparison to something. If you're a Canuck to the north, shout out to my Canucks to the north, especially my folks up in Toronto, Ontario, Hamilton. I really miss y'all folks out there. Um, I met the dude who spent like 25 years, and he's one of the many faces of the people who fought to legalize cannabis in Canada. I forget which province went first, but when the other provinces seen how much they was pulling in from how much the growers, the dispensaries, the sellers were making, guess what happened? Everyone jumped on board because they saw the money. Kazakhstan sees the money. The Kingdom of Bhutan sees the money. China sees the money. Russia sees the money. The EU sees the money. New York sees the money. The SEC sees the money. Okay. The point being is because of the money, that's where the adoption. Sorry, I thought the mic was off. Anywho, the point is because of the money that can be extracted legally, this is where we're going to get the like, oh, well, we need to start making these rules in place now. I forgot who did it the other day where the governor was like, well, no, I can't sign this bill because it would tie the hand of county and city regulators to make rules that would work for them to make the industry, and this is for mining, safer at the local levels, They see the money. They're just trying to figure out how do we come up with the rules to be able to extrapolate the value based on a tax, based on a certification, based on an inspection, based on some kind of zoning requirement. Like it's 101 ways to skin a cat, as they say. That's what's happening. Everyone's trying to figure out what part of the industry can they get to come to their local municipality, city level, state level, county level, state level, federal level. Overseas, it's like provenance, and some other stuff that I cannot remember how it like breaks out. But the point being is everyone is at some point going to have to draw their line in the sand. Or are they going to be a super friendly place? Are they going to be a super hard place? And if you're a super hard place, are you okay with losing the money to the next jurisdiction over? That's two jurisdictions over from you, or across the other side of a river or a pond or an ocean. That's what's going on. And I've been seeing this for a number of months now. I'm just saying. I'm sorry. I'm getting excited. All right. Yeah, I think that was my no, was that my that was not my last story. Hold on. I think I had one more thing. I did. Okay, this was my sushi swap story, and then I'm done. I'm done. All right. So this happened, and I went over the 30 minutes, y'all. I'm sorry. So I had my king moment. I'm a hashtag that one. I have my king moment. Um, Sushi Swap forks Uniswap V3 and deploys on 13 networks. Will more dexes follow? So first off, let's put this in true context of these are syndexes, so centralized, decentralized exchanges. They market decentralized, but they're really centralized, and they're more centralized on the back end where it counts, right? Um, they're also one of the people who's in the chopping block or in the crosshairs for Reggie on the whole copyright infringement thing. Well, sorry, the IP infringement. There we go. IP, intellectual property. So, all right, jumping down into the highlights. Sushi Swap, a popular decentralized exchange, is launching a concentrated liquidity is launching its concentrated liquidity pools on 13 networks. So the networks things isn't even important. I'm getting into these highlights again. Sushi Swap's V3 pools offer several advantages over traditional liquidity pools by concentrating liquidity in a smaller price range around certain market price. The potential for impermanent loss is reduced, allowing liquidity providers to supply liquidity within a narrow range. Subsequently, delivering a greater capital efficiency. Do I really care? Okay, yeah. Concentrated liquidity pools are designed to optimize the trading experience for traders and LPs. This reduces the spread between buy and sell orders, resulting in lower slippage for traders and greater capital efficiency for LPs. So I don't say this as a price talk thing, right? I know some of y'all are like, wait, but doesn't this sound like, you're talking about markets and price talk? That's not why I'm talking about this particular part of it. But here's what the real takeaway is. Here is what the real takeaway with. A couple of, I want to say weeks ago, I covered a story about how, what was it? Sushi Swap. Who was it? Uh, who was it? Who was it? Who was it? It was, who did it? So, option. So Uniswap. Um, so this is what happened. A couple weeks ago, back in April, Uniswap's um what is it? It wasn't an open source rule, but how they had the code for their V3 market pool thing, it turned open source in April, right? And at the time I said, "Oh, this is going to be interesting. Let's see what communities, what devs bust out with making their own kind of thing." It turns out, who was it? Something on Binance was the first one to do it. And then now Sushi Swap came out with something. So Pancake Swap was the first one to actually use the Uniswap fork or code. They were the first ones to fork it when the code became open source and free public range. I didn't think it was going to be exchanges that was going to do it first. In all honesty, I didn't think of it that way. I thought it was going to be like, GitHub level folks doing stuff with it. But what I will say is this is an indicator of showing that other dexes will end up taking this because it's a monkey see, monkey do thing. Tech-based companies really work high off of monkey see, monkey do. One person starts it, the rest of them are going to start doing the same thing. And that's what you're going to see happening in the exchange space. They're going to make these type of liquidity pools, and it's going to be off of the Uniswap V3 code that got open sourced in April. Again, I said it back then. It's going to be interesting to see what this looks like going into the halvening. I'm not talking about this from a price standpoint. What I'm really, and it wasn't until I read this article a couple times today, I think that this is going to open up the space and it's going to open up dexes in particular. And I'm talking about the C dexes that are centralized on the back end, but market as decentralized or DeFi on the front end. It's going to open them up to more regulation. Bottom line, I think it's going to open them up to more regulation, and we'll see how it plays out over the coming months and year and change or whatever. And we'll also see how many more of these dexes run this same pattern of forking the Uniswap code and then coming up with these liquidity pool, variation things. I see a lot more of it coming, but that's just me. Nonetheless, I rambled on long enough. I'm gonna close it out on this and say thank you for making it to the end. I definitely pushed on past the 35-minute marker. I know I was getting excited. I feel like I get more excited about this stuff, but it's like excitement / frustration because I be seeing this stuff and you see the patterns and it just is like, all right, this is where we're at right now. Really? Wow. But nonetheless, though, I do appreciate the folks who follow through up to this part of it. And yeah, until the next story, right? Oh, I'm working on something else. I will have to say it when the thing actually happens. But working on a couple of different things and waiting to see these things come out. And when they do, it's gonna be like, wow, okay, this guy's been on his grind. I promise you, I do be trying to make some things happen on my end. But anywho, as I say, what is it? P over B, which is have a productive over busy day. If it can't be a productive day, at least have it be that you are in a safe place, in a safe space, and in good company. And as a human to other humans who can hear my voice or see my presence, that's like the best thing that I could wish, right? I don't really want nobody having a bad day. And hopefully, you know, the day is going to be productive. But again, if not, at least be in a safe place, in a safe space, and in good company. That's the best thing I could wish. Other than that, folks, oh, don't forget, Metaverse is the other side. We're moving it to Saturdays, and it's going to be at the 12 o'clock afternoon period on Saturdays now. But we do the live joints on Thursdays on the Builder DAO Twitter space. So yeah, that's it. 8 p.m. by the way, East Coast time, and 12 p.m. on Saturday, East Coast time. All right, I'm done. One.